Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. If you have followed me for any amount of time, you may have already made one of my fully lined boxy pouches. This was one of the first tutorials that I ever uploaded to my channel. It is still one of the most popular. And inside of this bag, you will see there's no raw edges. It's a fun bag. It's actually my favorite project when I'm kind of in like a sewing rut and I haven't sewn in a while and I don't know what to do. I just make one of these. They always come out great. They always make me happy. And there's so many options. So aside from doing something like this, we're gonna kind of mash it up today and make this. If you have been following any of the bag groups or any other makers or channels right now, you know that clear vinyl is the thing. It is everywhere. You can find it on so many websites. If you go to any shows, you're probably seeing it there as well. Are you afraid of it? You might be, and I can understand. Sometimes sewing with new materials, especially something like this that is sticky but also slippery, it's kind of a weird thing. It can be kind of intimidating. What if my machine can't handle it? Can I sew this on my domestic? Where do I get all of the vinyl? I'm gonna give you all of that information today. So in this video, we're going to make a bag just like this with the clear vinyl on the top and cork on the bottom. Now, I would love to take full credit for this, but I can't. This was actually a suggestion from one of my viewers who asked if you could mix the vinyl with cork. And I said, sure, why not? Let me try it for you. Well, now I'm kind of obsessed. So one of the first bags that I made was this one right here, which is all clear vinyl, and that's totally fine as well. But there's just something about mixing my two favorite things, cork and a boxy pouch, that just makes me happy. I love putting cork on the outside, so why not make it with the clear vinyl? In this video, I'm going to give you all of the dimensions that you need because I have used my original tutorial, which you can find linked up here, but I've also gone ahead and made it into a two-tone bag. I did this on the large as well as the medium. Here it is. So I've done that for both of those. I chose not to do the small size because it is kind of on the smaller side. I didn't think it would look quite as nice, but who knows, maybe I'll experiment with that too. So I'm gonna give you everything you need to make these. I will link all of the information in the description of this video so you know where I got all of my vinyl and my zippers from. All of the cork is from my website, some of the zippers are, and the original tutorial with sizes can also be found on my website, right here. So if you like videos like this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell. All right, let's get into it. So before we get into our supplies, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the project that we're going to be working on. So as I mentioned before, I used the measurements from my fully lined boxy pouch tutorial. So if you go onto my website or you would like to watch the video, which I will link for you, you have 3 different sizes. So there is the large, the medium, and the small. For today's project, I did skip the small. I just felt like it was a little bit too small to add a contrast onto. It would be a great size for just using clear vinyl, but I wanted to skip that size for today. For the large and the medium, what I have done is I've just divided my measurement for my top and bottom in half. And I added 1/4 of an inch to each one. That way I have the correct seam allowance. So the large, for example, is 15 inches wide, so I did not change the width on it, and it is 10 inches high. So I made my top and my bottom 5 1/4 inches each. That's all. And then for the medium, I did the same thing. It is 13 inches across, 8 inches high. So I left my width and I made my top and my bottom 4 1/4 inches each. That is how I ended up with these two right here. So this is the medium. This has the jelly vinyl on the bottom and the clear on the top. I did do a double zipper on this one. You can do a single or a double zipper. I prefer a double. That's what I'm going to show you in today's video, but you can very easily do a single zip. Let me move these out of the way. And then for the large size, here's that one right here. I did the candy apple red cork on the bottom and the clear vinyl on the top. Again, I did a double zipper. So those are the 2 sizes that I'm going to be working with. I will list those sizes and the cutting instructions for you on the screen after we go through our supplies. That way you have it right there. But if you would like to download the 1-page PDF off of my website, just know that that's all that I did. Divide my height in half and add 1/4 of an inch to each. So this one right here, this is the large size. This I just did out of the vinyl. So I cut my pieces as the pattern says, 10 inches by 15 inches wide, and I just used a single pull zipper. This one I did not do anything special to. I just sewed it and just obviously skipped the lining. And for this one right here, I do love this vinyl, absolutely in love with it, love it with the cork. This one was kind of an experiment and the cork is a little bit lower than I would like it, just so you can see. I was kind of doing like a 1/3, 2/3, didn't really love that ratio. Sometimes you have to play to find out what's gonna work the best. So for our bag that we're gonna make in the video today, we're gonna do the medium size with cork on the bottom. Again, I'll go through all of the supplies as well as the measurements so you have everything right in front of you. I gathered all the supplies I'm going to need for today. So let's start with our vinyl and cork. I am going to be making the medium size pouch. So I have 2 pieces of cork for the bottom and 2 pieces of vinyl for the top. I cut all 4 of these pieces 13 inches wide and 4 1/4 inches high. The cork is from my website and this vinyl right here is from moremeknow.com. I am using the same measurements as the fully lined boxy pouch in the medium size. I just went ahead and split this into 2 and added 1/4 inch to each. So in the original tutorial, I would have whatever my outside is 8 inches high. And in this case, since I'm using 2 different materials, I have each of them 4 1/4 inches high. The width did not change. On the following screen, I'm going to give you the measurements for the medium as well as the large. That way you have them in front so you can pause and jot those down. For my zipper, I have chosen this clear zipper right here. I just thought that was really fun. I purchased this from sewmajestic.com. I have 2 different zipper pulls. This is one of my standard donut pulls, and then I found this really cute spool of thread with flowers. I cannot remember where I bought this, but before I upload this video, I will find it and link it for you. So I'm going to be using both of those and making a double pull. Again, you can just make a single pull if that's what you would prefer. As far as my thread is concerned, I'm using my favorite go-to, which is Aurifil 40 weight. I'm going to use this in the top and the bobbin. Now, when it comes to a bag like this, because there is no lining, just keep in mind that you are going to see your thread. So if you look inside here, you can see down on my seams right here that you can see the thread. So I try to use something similar to kind of the look that I'm going for. I'm using purple today, so I picked a dark purple thread. For this one, because it has multiple colors and I put the red on the bottom, I went ahead and just picked a variegated that had some reds and oranges. I liked how that one looked. This is not going to be something that's going to be easy to hide unless you wanted to use a monofilament thread, which personally I'm not a big fan of. I just don't really like working with those. You're going to see your thread. So you're going to want to be as neat as you can and clip your threads as you go. That is also why I keep my lighter handy, because not only am I going to clip my threads, I'm also going to kind of burn my ends, make sure that everything is nice and neat, and I will use the lighter on my zipper as well. So just kind of remember that you will see your thread. You'll have to learn to embrace it, but if you pick a really pretty thread, I don't think it'll be so hard. So I have my thread, I have my zipper. Again, I have my lighter and my scissors, my rotary cutter, and I use my ruler to do all of my trimming. I have a small ruler right here that I'm going to use for my corners, because once I have these pieces done, really the only trimming I will have to do is for the corners, which will be in a later step. And if anything kind of skews, I might have to trim a little bit. So I have my big ruler nearby. I have some marking tools, and it's all going to depend on where I mark my corners, which one I use. If you are making a completely clear vinyl bag, you're going to want something that's going to show up on the vinyl that you can erase, or you might have to cut around it. So sometimes I will use a Sharpie. I know that probably feels real weird, but sometimes I have to because I can't use anything else or I can't find anything else. So if I mark with a Sharpie, I just make sure that I cut it completely off. I'll show you what I mean when we get to the corners. This is a silver vinyl marking tool from Moremeknow. This one is also really nice because it will wipe right off. Just be careful when you get to the corners, and we'll talk more in depth about that when we get there. I have some clips here because I am always going to use clips when I sew my bags, and especially with the vinyl. You can use the standard clips, these right here, but just remember that these have kind of little bumps right here. I don't know if you can really see those, but there's little bumps on the inside of the clip. If you leave them on the vinyl for too long, you may end up seeing that. So I try as often as possible to use a clip like this. These are kind of the little hair clips. They're totally flat, not as strong, but we're doing small seams, so it's okay. But these are completely smooth, so they don't leave any creases. And last but certainly not least is going to be your foot. Again, I am sewing on my Janome Skyline S9. That is a domestic sewing machine. That is what I've made every one of these boxy pouches on. You don't have to have a heavy duty machine or anything really special to sew with this vinyl or to sew with cork. So what I have found is that I can use a Teflon or a non-stick foot if I want, but I don't always love how easy it is to line that up. I like this little skinny foot. This is my HP foot. And what I like about this is that I can just move my needle to different positions, whether it's over here in the hole or in the center, and I can sew my 1/4 of an inch and my 1/8 inch with just this foot on. I don't have to change it out. And it works really nicely even next to the zipper because it's really narrow. But what I did to make this work a little easier on the vinyl is on the back here, I added some washi tape. You can use Scotch tape if you want, but I just had washi tape nearby. And I added a piece onto each of them. You can see I've been sewing for a while. It's kind of ripping a little bit right here, but adding that little bit of tape makes it glide really nicely, and then I don't have to use my non-stick foot. So this is the foot that I'm going to put on and use for my entire bag. All right. So first things first, we need to put our zipper pull or pulls on. I'm going to be doing 2. I find that most bag makers have done a single zipper, especially with the zipper by the yard, but they may not have done a double zipper. So I like to show my little technique for putting on my pulls. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up one of my ends, and I'm going to add one of my zipper pulls. And I don't have to be super careful with this one. It can kind of go on and it can create a bump or a wave. It does not matter. I'm just going to throw that on there. I just put each end in and I pinch and wiggle between my fingers until I get down to here. So now you'll see I have a little bit of a bump, but that's okay. I'm going to open this up and pull that right down towards the end. And now I can see which one of my ends is a little longer than the other. So instead of trimming, here's what I like to do. I'm just going to insert that side first. So I'm going to take my second zipper pull and insert that side just a little bit more than the other one. And I'm going to put the second side in. And before I put this on, I do my pinch test. I kind of like to see if this looks even. If I have too much on one side, that means I'm going to get a bubble. And that's what you don't want to get when you're doing a double zipper pull. So this looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to very gently grab a hold, put my fingers here, and just like that, double zipper, no bubble. Yes, I probably made that look real easy, but remember, I've been doing this for a long time. It does take some practice. And if it's frustrating you and you're having a problem, just do a single zipper pull. That's completely fine. I just love doing the double zipper. I like kind of opening my bag outward. So I'm just gonna push those in towards the center. I don't need those falling off right now. So before I add my zipper on, I'm going to sew together my top and my bottom. I'm going to take my piece of vinyl right here and I'm going to put it right sides together with my cork. So there is a right and a wrong side to the vinyl. You can see right here the prettier colors, and on the back here it's kind of like a very pale purple. That's just where it was printed. So I want this right sides together with my cork. And I'm going to use a few of my clips here and just line that up and get it ready to sew. All right, so there's half number 1 and half number 2. Everything I'm doing on this bag, I'm gonna do twice because I have a front and a back, a right and a left, whichever you would whichever way you like to look at it. But I need to have 2 panels so that I have this side and this side. So I'm going to take this over to my machine. I'm going to take my foot with me and my thread, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch along this long edge and 1/4 of an inch along this long edge. Make sure that I backstitch, and because I'm working with vinyl, I'm not going to be pressing it. I will do some finger pressing, and I'll show you where you're going to top stitch. Stretching too much. So I went ahead and I pieced both my front and back with 1/4 of an inch seam. I made sure to backstitch. And as usual, I'm going to be trimming my threads as I go. I like to do that instead of saving it until the end, and especially for this bag where things are going to show. So now that this is done, I'm going to do some top stitching, and this is going to be kind of your call how you want to do it. For me, I don't like to top stitch through the vinyl and have, you know, kind of this little lip here showing. If I was going to top stitch the top and the bottom, I'd open my seam, but then I'm going to see the back of the vinyl. So for this, what I like to do is just top stitch the bottom. So I'm just going to top stitch on the cork, and I'm going to kind of finger press it as I go. Again, ironing this is not going to be a great idea. You can iron the cork, but if you get the iron too close to the vinyl and you burn it, you're not going to be too happy. Don't want to melt our vinyl. So I'm just going to finger press this at the machine, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch top stitching right along this seam. So just on the cork on both sides. I have both of my pieces top stitched. I am using a 3.5 stitch length. That is for my sewing as well as my top stitching. I just find that I don't want to go too small with the vinyl because I don't want to perforate it and end up ripping it. So now that I have that together, I'm going to grab my zipper, and I'm going to place my zipper on one of the halves here. There are many techniques and many different ways that you can put your zipper in. Some people are using double stick tape. That is not my preference when it comes to the clear vinyl because you can see it if you're not really careful. I have seen other bag makers use little kind of binding strips or like a little overlay. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple for today and put my zipper right to my vinyl, sew it, flip it, and top stitch it. So I'm going to take my vinyl. I have my right side up of my piece. I'm going to take my zipper and place it right side down. I don't really care where my zipper pulls are, but since I have an extra long zipper, I'm going to move them to the edge just because I can. If you are unable to do that, if your zipper is smaller and you have to open as you go, that is also fine. So I have my zipper right side down, and I'm going to align the top edge, and I'm sure this is very hard to see because I'm working with 2 things that are clear, but I'm going to align the edge and just use a few of these clips, kind of just lining up my zipper. And I'm actually feeling, because it's not as easy for me to see as well, just because again, it's all clear. So I'm just going to place those 2 like so. I have my zipper lined up. I'm going to stitch this 1/4 of an inch. Again, make sure that I back stitch when I start and stop. When I'm done with that, while I'm at the machine, I'm going to fold this back and I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch. There is my 1/4 of an inch seam. I'm going to fold my zipper back so my vinyl is facing away from the zipper. You can see there's my little seam right there, pushing that away from the zipper, and I'm going to top stitch again 1/8 of an inch. So I have my first side sewn in. I sewed my zipper and my vinyl right sides together 1/4 of an inch, folded it back so that my vinyl seam is going away from my zipper. I don't want to get the vinyl stuck in the zipper teeth. It's pushed back and it's top stitch 1/8 of an inch. So now that I have half number 1, I'm going to repeat on the opposite side with half number 2. I'm going to take my vinyl and cork piece and put it right side down on the opposite side of my zipper, aligning my sides as well as the top with the zipper. Sometimes you're going to get this finished and have to do some trimming. It's not the end of the world, so don't worry if you have anything that kind of skews. You can see the vinyl, it sticks to itself, but it can also be slippery. So sometimes when you're at the machine, it wants to move and shift a little bit. It's totally fine. We can always trim, and I can already tell that I'm going to need to trim, which is probably good for you because you can see how to do it very easily. So I have my pieces right sides together. My vinyl is right side together with the other half of the zipper. I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch, press that back and top stitch 1/8 of an inch. So now that I am ready to start putting this together, I'm gonna do some trimming on the sides, and most importantly, I'm going to move my zipper pulls into the middle. That is going to be really important. I'm gonna leave a little bit of an opening here so I can turn it when I'm done, but I'm gonna take my ruler, I'll just move that over a little bit, and I'm just gonna straighten up this edge and trim off the ends of my zipper. Now, I am not measuring. I am just kind of straightening it up, taking off the least amount that I can, but I'm not doing anything too crazy here. So I don't care if it's a little smaller than it's supposed to be because nobody's going to know. So I'll scoop my zipper pulls over a little bit more, straighten up this edge. And I'm just using one of the lines on my ruler on my seam here on the cork, and then kind of checking the zipper up here. I'm gonna scoot that zipper pull out of the way, and I'm just gonna straighten that up. Now, if I need to, I can also trim a little bit on the bottom, but even if it's not totally perfect, I'm okay with that because you're not gonna know when it's finished. So now that I have that all set, what I would do if this was a regular polyester zipper, something like this one right here or any of the other colored zippers like this one right here, is I would go ahead and run my lighter along that edge to kind of burn the edges, not just the teeth, but the polyester itself. That way I didn't get any fraying. Because we're not putting a lining in this, everything's going to show. So if your zipper is sloppy on the end or you have any thread showing, they're going to show. So you want to keep it nice and neat. Because this is a different kind of a zipper and it's not going to fray, I'm not going to worry about burning my ends. What I am going to do still is I'm going to sew over the ends. I do like to do that on all my zippers for this style boxy pouch, just because it keeps it nice and neat, and because there isn't going to be a lining sewn in that will add a little bit of extra durability, then I won't have to worry about it. So I'm just gonna head over to the machine and I'm just going to stitch on both ends. I just increase my stitch length and I go about 1/8 of an inch just over those ends. Once that is done, I'm going to start closing this up. So I'm going to take my 2 cork edges and pull them right sides together just like so. And again, just throw a few clips on here. This time I can use whatever style clip I want. And at the machine, I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way across here, making sure to backstitch. So I'm gonna take my clips out, I'm gonna fix my zipper, just kind of stitch on those ends, and then again, 1/4 of an inch all the way across the cork bottom, make sure that you backstitch. I stitched over my zipper ends, I did that on both ends, about 1/8 of an inch, and then I stitched 1/4 of an inch all the way across my cork bottom right here. So the next thing I'm going to do, and you can see also my zippers are open, I wanted to make sure the pulls are inside and open, is I'm going to take this bottom seam and I'm just going to finger press it open and I'm going to pull it in, I'm going to straighten this out, right to the zipper. So the center of my seam is lined right up on the zipper teeth, just like that. I'm going to throw a clip in, which of course I took over there and didn't bring back. That's normal. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to open up my seam, trim this little thread here first. There we go. Oh, and this one too. I'm telling you, you got to keep it neat. Okay. So I'm going to finger press this bottom cork seam open, pull the cork to the zipper teeth just like that, right in the center, and add a clip. Now I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch across both of my short ends. So I'm going to go all the way across, make sure I backstitch, all the way across, make sure I backstitch. This is where it's going to be a little bit different from the original lined boxy pouch because we don't have a lining to worry about. So we're gonna sew all the way across here, closing that up 1/4 of an inch. I stitched both of my short ends 1/4 of an inch. I backstitched when I started and stopped. If you want, you can double stitch this seam. It's not gonna hurt anything. It is kind of one of the main seams and we are going to be doing a little tugging on it for the next part with the corners. So if you want to really reinforce it, go ahead and stitch that twice. You'll see here that my cork is not fully open, just on the ends. I can take this over to the iron or I can use a roller if I want to. I'm just gonna kind of leave it. The way that I figure is that yes, it is visible at the end. However, once I put things in it, no one's going to see. So as much as I like to be neat, I'm gonna skip that for now. So now that I have this all set, I'm going to mark and cut my corners. This is when you're going to want to find the right tool that's going to show. You can mark on the vinyl or on the cork, whatever you want. The cork is going to be a little bit easier to mark on. So I have this little ruler right here. It's very handy because it's already 2 inches wide. I'm going to place the 2-inch line right on the fold down here on the bottom and right here on the seam. I don't want to come all the way over. I want to be measuring from the seam and from the fold. So once I have that in place, you can, whoops, go ahead and mark. And if I don't mark all the way down onto the vinyl, that's okay. I can see where I need to line up my scissors. I'm going to mark over here as well. Again, measuring from the seam and from the fold. So if you noticed, I've only marked 2. I should technically mark the other 2, but I'm going to show you a little cheater trick. I would not normally encourage this. I don't like to encourage cheating behavior, and I wouldn't do this if I had my lined boxy pouch with technically 8 corners. With this one, because it's smaller and I only have the 4 corners, I'm going to show you a little cheat technique that I like to do. I'm just going to fold my bag in half. I'm lining up my side and my edge, and I'm going to go ahead and clip above and next to the little marks because I want to keep that clear for my scissors. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm lining up the bottom edges and the sides, adding some clips just like that. And now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut all of the corners, well, 2 of them anyway, at the same time. This is kind of a cheater thing, but you know what? It's okay. It's a quick project and we want to make it as quick as possible. So I've cut those corners. Now I'm going to cut these. And if you have nice sharp scissors, this is not a problem. If you are uncomfortable with this, you are welcome to mark all 4 corners. One way or another, they need to be cut. So whatever it takes for you to do it, go right ahead. So there is my little cheating hack. So now my bag looks like this, okay? It looks the same on either side. It kind of has a T shape now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up and box these corners. Right here, I have a seam, and right here, I have a seam. I haven't reinforced those. I can if I want to, but I'm just going to take it easy and be very gentle. What I'm also going to do is pull this zipper pull over almost all the way to the edge. Gives me a little bit more room to work with. So now I'm just going to straighten out this seam right here, make it into a nice corner. Now you'll notice that your 2 seams don't line up and they are not supposed to line up. So I'm just kind of aligning the top of the vinyl. And then right here, I'm just gently pushing them. I push both of them down towards the cork, lining that up. And I'm going to tell you another little trick right here. When I'm done sewing, I'm going to trim my seam allowance. So if you are sewing or at least your folding part is not perfect, that's okay. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. There is my corner. I'm going to pull that gently, straighten it out, and push both of those seams down like so. And I need one more clip. Well, I'm going to head to the machine, so that's okay. So I have my corners on one side clipped. I'm going to sew those, do the same thing on this side. I'm just boxing all 4 corners. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch all the way along here. I am going to sew these seams twice because I am going to trim them down and I just like to make them extra secure. So I'm going to box these corners, box the other side as well, 1/4 inch along all 4, make sure I backstitch, and I will stitch it twice. I have all my corners sewn. I went ahead and trimmed all of my threads. And here is another little tip. I don't know if it's just me thinking that it's a good thing or if it really works, but when I'm sewing my corners, if I am sewing this one and I start here and work my way down to the cork, when it's time to sew the second seam, because I sew them all twice, I flip it over and sew from the cork down. I don't know if it really makes a difference or if it's just me convincing myself that it's stronger, but that's just how I like to do it. So now that I have all of my threads trimmed, I think, I've gone ahead and I sewed my 1/4 inch seam, and now I'm just going to take my scissors or my rotary cutter, and I'm gonna trim these down to a little over 1/8 of an inch. I don't wanna go too small, but I'm just gonna trim each of those. I just think it neatens it up, and when my corners are not perfect, because they never are, this kind of eliminates that and makes them look even better. And it's also one last chance to take a look, make sure that I've gotten all those threads. That is it. The sewing is done. The only thing left to do is turn it right side out. Now, if you are using a vinyl or a cork or anything that's kind of stiff, a little trick that I learned from a friend is to use a hair dryer, because obviously we don't want to put an iron on this. I don't have a hair dryer here, and this is a pretty easy vinyl to turn, but if I needed to, I could also kind of I could steam the top to soften it up. That's a trick that I do with interfacing as well, but if you have a hair dryer, that works too. So I'm just putting my finger and thumb in each of these little corners and kind of poking them out. I take my time here, kind of poke each of those, make them look nice, and we are done. Did not use an iron, didn't have to do anything fancy. And this is the cutest thing ever. I'm just absolutely in love. I think this one is going to be mine. I kind of want to keep them all, but chances are somebody's going to walk away with one. But how cute is that? I used vinyl, I used some cork scraps, I have some cute zipper pulls. Now this kind of a bag is not going to be the most structured bag. The vinyl is kind of soft, there's no interfacing, so it's going to kind of be squishy, but you're going to put your things in here anyway. I think this will be perfect for traveling as a little makeup bag, or for some of my sewing supplies. Sometimes if you go somewhere and you're taking a class and you can't see all your supplies, it drives you crazy. So at least here I can see what's inside of my bag. So that is it. I am all done. I have made all of these today. So I've got lots of bags that I can fill up with all sorts of goodies. I hope that you feel a little bit more comfortable working with clear vinyl today. If you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe, click the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. Check out the description of the video for all of the information on where I purchased all of my supplies. And don't forget to take a little screenshot of the different sizes. When you post your bags, don't forget to tag me. I'd love to see what you made. Thank you and happy sewing.